Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with my belated review of AEW's FYTER FEST. This show took place this past Saturday night at the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach, Florida, concurrent with the CEO Fighting Games Championship happening around that same time. Of course, Kenny Omega has had a long relationship with CEO. Big fighting game aficionado is Kenny. So this show here is kind of like the culmination of that relationship. And like, at least in storyline, Kenny is the brains behind this show. And you'll see that as the pre-show goes along as well. And the real big hook about this, besides the video game tie-in, is of course the name is based off Fyter Fest, that very infamous island getaway hangout that was plugged by social media influencers, yours truly excluded, and then of course it turned into a giant debacle. There were two documentaries that came out around the same time on Netflix and Hulu that covered just how much of a disaster this show was, and so I don't know if I would agree with the move to name your show after one of the biggest, Waterloos of live events and party management in recent history and recent memory. And to further hit you over the head with the symbolism here, you had a lot of people like Hangman Page and Nyla Rose and some other wrestlers tweeting occasionally before the show began, like with the hashtag FyterFraud, about how, oh, there's no accommodations, and oh, it's flooding, and oh, this and that. And it's all these really bad things that kind of mirror like what was happening during Fyter Fest. Like, guys, don't jinx it. There's a lot of, in this pre-show in particular, there is a lot of recurring skits where you see Kenny Omega in the backs frantically trying to save the show, like, oh, they're running out of money, they're over budget, they have to take away some of the models that are on stage, they have to replace them with mannequins, Blink 182 pulls out of their performance or whatever, all this different stuff going on. So you can see like, oh, they're struggling so much, which I don't know is the right visual you want to get across with a relatively new company still trying to find their footing and gain an audience. So the last thing, even though it is very tongue-in-cheek and they make it very obvious it's a joke, still at the same time, it's kind of the optics thing, and I'm not sure if that's the best thing to model your show after is Fyter Fest. Like, come on guys, don't jinx it. Let's talk about the set here. Very similar to what they had at Double or Nothing, the double tunnels, the chandelier thing in the middle and so forth. Very Bash the Beach-like with some of the decorations there and the famous Fyter Fest tents. One thing that bugs me, speaking of production, about this show is when the theme songs play, you get like the audio in the arenas. You get all this reverberation and echoing when the themes are playing, so you'll hear like these really crisp drum beats just echoing constantly, and sometimes it makes it kind of hard to hear. The way WWE has it right now, I don't know how they get the sound mix just right, where you hear like crystal clear music and the crowd and the commentary, but I think AEW needs to try and find some way to get as close to that as possible, because right now it's a small thing, but at the same time it's like you're supposed to be a big boy organization. You're supposed to have all this money and do all this stuff with it, and you can't get your theme songs mixed correctly with the sound noise, with the crowd sound I should say. That's just something that caught me off guard. The pre-show begins with a 3-team tag match as Private Party take on Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky of SCU and Chucky T and Trent Beretta, the Babba best friends. This match was a lot of fun. The crowd was really into Private Party here. Those two got a lot of time to shine. In particular, Mark Quentin, he's the big high flyer of the group. Some of the things he did in this match were completely unreal, and the fact he did so much in the match with his sunglasses still on was extra points for him. The shooting star press he did near the end of the match is picture perfect, smooth motion, great elevation. It was just so fun to watch. And like, this is a relatively new tag team, or at least a new to mainstream fans tag team, getting a lot of buzz these last few weeks. This is kind of their coming out party, so to speak, getting a lot of time to shine here, and so it's a great opening statement for them. And I think I forget which young buck said on Twitter, but right after that match they were offered full-time contracts on the spot, so it shows you how well they impressed the upper brass at AEW. Things do slow way down once it's just the best friends working over Isaiah Cassidy, the other half of Private Party. There's a big old hot tag though where everyone gets their shit in. Best friends win with a strong 0 on the Cassidy. It's a damn fun opening match. I give it 3 stars out of 4. After the match though, the Dark Order appear on the screen as the former Super Smash Brothers. Kind of ironic that in this gaming festival they don't go by their old team name. Anyway, they said the best friends will be their first victims. The lights go out and they come back up and the minions are surrounding the ring. Lights go out again, they come back up and the minions are gone. Mooey spooky. We get some backstage footage of Kenny Omega's world falling apart as the Fyter Fest is going over budget. Then we see Leva Bates, the librarian. She's shushing the audience. She finds Peter Avalon, the other librarian, in the tent on the middle of the stage. Avalon hucks the tent into the kiddie pool on the floor underneath the stage. And then the two of them kind of cut a collaborative promo together, putting over words and books. And the fans don't really know what to make of this whole thing. They're kind of dead quiet for the whole time. And I don't know if it's them not being into it or them being super into it, because maybe they're so over these librarians that when they tell people to shh, they actually respectfully shh. You know, the audience is just dead quiet this whole time. It is to the detriment, though, of the show, because I think it really brings the vibe down to this whole show. And the energy with the audience, at least, has a really hard time getting back into the thick of things. Like the opening tag team match was great, and then it just dies when the librarians come out and do their thing. But anyway, we get a match between Leva Bates and Allie in singles action. I think it's kind of ironic that Leva is this well-known wrestling cosplayer, and they're at this gaming festival, which just like begs for cosplay. And she's dressed up like a librarian. Anyway, there's some hooked on phonics chants, some reading rainbow chants, the last they get in this whole thing. There's some miscommunication with Avalon and Bates, and it results with Allie winning with a super kick. I give this match 2 stars out of 4. I think it was a well-wrestled match. It was done well. I just think I'm really not sold on the librarian gimmick. I think that it's a bit too quirky for prime time, if that makes any sense. It's kind of similar to the whole idea of, oh, Fyter Fest is losing money, get it like Fyre Fest. Like, I think if you're doing this quirky stuff and you're trying to like gain credibility as a new company, I don't think that's the way to go about it. I'm all for silly gimmicks. Don't get me wrong. I love me some goofy gimmicks. I just think that right now, the fans in AEW aren't really conditioned for the goofy stuff right now, because there is this focus, supposed focus, on AEW being a very sports-centric and serious kind of thing. No soap opera drama, yet we have this weird, really unexplained librarian gimmick. I know I don't watch enough Being the Elite. Maybe there's more to it than that, but I certainly didn't see much about why the librarians exist in like the Road to Double or Nothing or the Road to Fyter Fest videos. So it's like, I mean, it's just one of those weird things where if you're trying to get this mainstream audience or you're trying to build an audience, this librarian gimmick is a little too niche. In your pre-show main event, Michael Nakazawa takes on Alex Jebailey, who is pretty much the head of CEO, the fighting games tournament with which this is a whole show is operating under. He's the organizer of the event, and so he's got this match here with this trained wrestler, Michael Nakazawa. Excalibur says on commentary, "We promise it's the only time you'll see indulgent nepotism in AEW, and after this match, it fucking better be." I don't have a lot of specific notes for this particular match. Basically, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a comedy hardcore match with one of the people being a complete non-wrestler. And so basically Nakazawa is carrying him through this whole thing. And I'm sure they rehearsed this thing to the letter, but this is just a bad match. I'm just going to read off here for my notes I wrote and what I said here. I love Michael Nakazawa's character. I hate this match. I get why they did it. I don't agree with it. Do you want to be different from WWE? This is not how you get different from WWE. I would be totally on board with this match for the most part if it were anyone else but Jebailey in the ring. I would take an actor with no cardio or an athlete who can't act before this guy. The dude cannot stop corpsing. It's like an E-Fed match come to life. This is what would happen if it were me in there with Nakazawa, but somehow worse. Also, how many fucking gimmicks does Michael Nakazawa have? He's got the baby oil, he pulls the thong out of his trunks. His name alone is a gimmick. Nakazawa takes a bump into a bunch of loose arcade buttons. At one point, Jebailey busts out a fucking La Magistral cradle on Nakazawa. It's the one good move he pulls out. Like, okay, you know, fair points to you, but the referee is blinded. He can't make the count in time. He makes a 2 count. Nakazawa counters it into his own roll-up, and he pins Jebailey after getting his ass kicked. Well, thank God, at least the wrestler won this thing. I give it 0 stars out of 4 stars. This match was so bad, it was so dumb. At the risk of sounding like an asshole, this basically felt like I was watching a Make-A-Wish event come to life. Jebailey, I would liken him to the Mighty Maccabee of our generation, someone who only shows up once in a blue moon to get involved in the ring. Although at least this time, though, Jebailey lost, so at least he's got that over Jeff Buchan's Mighty Maccabee in that he went over every time. This match, it's like, okay, I get why they did this. This was something kind of like it was a necessary evil to justify doing this show at CEO Gaming. Tony Khan even said so much in the presser after the show. This is just something we had to do. fine. But could you at least not make this the main event of your pre-show? Like, this is the last thing you're trying to do, to sell people on this pay-per-view before it goes live, and this is what you present? It's just too goofy, it's too wacky. And again, if you're trying to present yourself as an alternative to WWE, this is not the way you go about doing it. Like the librarian gimmick, it's one of those things where it's like, if it were a smaller audience, if the stakes weren't as high to be on this broadcast on pay-per-view everywhere, then I wouldn't care so much. But, you know, there's people who have a lot of faith and hope in All Elite Wrestling, and like, this is kind of what you're showing, and it's like, it just runs so counter to everything that these hardcore wrestling fans have been taught about what, you know, their brand of wrestling is and what their ideal is. You get this really goofy comedy match with a complete untrained guy who not even the full audience of those watching have any idea who this guy is. I don't know who the fuck Alex Jebailey is. I don't care who Alex Jebailey is. And I guarantee you there's a lot of people watching this show who also are in the same boat as me. The people who are into the fighting games will know who he is, and that's pretty much it. It's like a niche within a niche within a niche. It's a Russian nesting doll of niche interests here. So who is really going to care about Alex Jebailey versus Michael Nakazawa? And like I said, for a company that's trying to find its footing, not the best thing to end your show on, your pre-show at least. This is a bad look, and I hope they don't have to do this ever again. However, I will say, the pre-show does end on a really strong yet subtle note, because he cuts to this pre-tape thing with Jon Moxley looking right at the camera and saying, you know, what am I going to do to Joey Janela in our match? Well, you're about to find out. Fade to black. Boom! I love that. It's so simple, it's so effective. One final push, like, okay, forget this bullshit you just saw. Now you're going to see a real hardcore match. You don't know what Moxley's going to do, because those of you who haven't seen him before he got signed to WWE as Dean Ambrose, you're going to see a new side of him. So I kind of like this very quick, simple, to-the-point message by Moxley to finally close out the pre-show. Your official opening match is Christopher Daniels taking on CIMA from OWE in singles action. Kind of a rare showing for Fallen Angel to be in singles action as of late, because he's been doing so much six-man work with the rest of SCU. This is a follow-up to the six-man match we saw at Double or Nothing, where SCU took on Strong Hearts from OWE. Lots of fighting in and out of the ring. Great meshing of styles by these two guys, because they can both be fast-paced kind of guys, but CIMA is doing a lot more of the Lucha Libre-inspired stuff. Daniels is slowing it down, yet still able to impress and perform at a very high level. They're exchanging some holds here. CIMA tells a story of his back being injured. It's preventing him from capitalizing on a lot of the big moves he's doing. CIMA kicks out of Angel's Wings by Daniels. Daniels is hit with a perfect driver and he kicks out. Finally, CIMA wins the match with a meteor from the top rope for the win. I'm going to give this one 2.5 stars. As far as like from the beginning of this particular show, great opening match, great pacing, great action. I think they flowed really well. These guys have a lot of history together as well. So they had great chemistry. I will say though, nothing about this match like blew me away. It's nothing I hadn't seen before. So I think this was, you know, it was a very competent, solid opening match, but it was not the same level as other matches we'd see the rest of the night. Ladies triple threat match up next as Riho takes on Yuka Sakazaki and Nyla Rose, who's dressed like Orchid from the Killer Instinct series on this night. One of my favorite commentary moments on the show was from this particular match. Nyla is doing something and Excalibur says, "Look at the tree trunk-like legs of Nyla Rose," and JR does not miss a fucking beat and just goes right in and says, "And for the record, folks, that was Excalibur who said Nyla's legs are like tree trunks, not Jim Ross." Like, thank you, Jim. That was beautiful. And yeah, Nyla really asserts her dominance in this match and looks really, really good. I was really impressed with the stuff that she was doing, and the three of them working together I thought was very good as well. Nyla initially deflects some 2-on-1 stuff and just really takes over. Some of the stuff she's doing is just absolutely, I think she gets to show off a lot of the stuff we didn't get to see that much of in Double or Nothing. We see a little bit, we see that and then some in this particular matchup. I love how at one point she catches both Riho and Yuka coming off the top rope and kind of a double like fall away slam kind of thing. So cool. And at one point she drops Riho with a knee drop off the top rope. She hits him in the back of the head when they're draped over the top rope. And that move was so cool. That really should have been the finish. But it keeps going for a couple minutes after that where Nyla doesn't want to make the cover. Ultimately it costs her. Riho gets an upset roll up on Nyla Rose for the win. I give this match 3 stars out of 4. I think it was a really fun match from start to finish. I think everyone got a chance to really showcase their abilities and shine in major ways that they might not have had a chance to do in their previous matches at Double or Nothing. This match actually kind of took some of the most exciting, interesting elements from those two ladies' matches and kind of merged them together in this triple threat. Kind of surprised that Nyla didn't win. I'm more surprised she took the fall in this particular matchup here. I think, I guess the story is, she got cocky and it cost her in this matchup. I guess it's part of her her like overall story arc between Double or Nothing and this one right here. It's kind of it's like you want to see her dominate and do well, but right now she hasn't come through in the clutch. But hopefully there will be a payoff to that. But she did look great in this matchup. I think she really added a lot to it. Kip Sabian joins the commentary team. He's going to be fighting the winner of this next match. It's a fatal four-way as Hangman Page, who's the #1 contender to the AEW title, taking on MJF, Jungleboy, who's accompanied by Luchasaurus, and Jimmy Havoc, who, conspicuous by his absence, is the staple gun. MJF with a great heel promo to start the match off here, roasting the audience. He goes, "I used to love video games, and then I lost my virginity." And then we cut to some like sad fan faces, which is just great. It's another great multi-man match. I think the special sauce of this match, though, is Jungleboy and Jimmy Havoc. You might think that Jimmy Havoc's going to handcuff when he doesn't get to do the hardcore stuff, but he really shines here in this match, and I think these two together add a lot of speed and high-flying aspect to this match. Once these two are eliminated and you see MJF and Page for a while, it does slow down considerably. But even still, I always am surprised. I keep forgetting just how agile and quick Hangman Page is, like doing kip-ups and stuff for a guy his size and dives and everything. Really good stuff by all four guys here. Luchasaurus gets involved as well. He catches Jungleboy when he falls, and then he catches him again to take a fall for him this time. And it's worth pointing out the commentary does a very good job singing the praises of all four guys in this matchup. Hangman Page and to a lesser extent MJF don't need as much exposition from the commentary because I think their characters are the best developed of the four based on what you see, at least on the in-ring product. But they do a very good job just hyping up everybody here. Ultimately, Page wins the match after hitting the Deadeye on Havoc. I give this match 3.5 stars out of 4. What I enjoy so much about this match is the fact that you have 4 very unique, distinct, different characters all coming together here in this matchup and having everything just work and flow so well. Great action, great storytelling. Like I said, Havoc might have been the one to suffer the most from this because it wasn't his particular wheelhouse because he's so much into the hardcore, the deathmatch stuff, and of course he had no chance to do any of that in this particular thing, but he still got a chance to get his character over, get some high spots in to really make an impression on the fans. Up next, Cody taking on Darby Allin in Darby's AEW debut. The Daredevil from the Pacific Northwest says he wants to hand Cody his first loss in All Elite Wrestling, which is further exemplified by the body bag Darby brings to the ring with him that has the words Cody 1-1 spray painted on them. Is this symbolic, King? The big story here in kayfabe, but also kind of in real life, is how Cody should not be taking this matchup because, you know, Cody is this name, he's an executive, he's got this match to think about with his brother against the Young Bucks at Fight for the Fallen, and meanwhile Darby Allin's is relative unknown, like huge in the indie scene. If you're a fan of the indies, you have a pretty good idea who Darby Allin is. As far as a mainstream name goes, though, with any kind of recognition, Darby doesn't really have that. It's a huge underdog story here, and Darby is clearly like outkicking his coverage here in terms of the caliber of opponent he is wrestling. The way they're building this up is that, you know, there's no way that Darby's going to make this competitive with Cody, but we do get a lot of body language early on where Cody is kind of seeing, maybe I underestimated Darby, and maybe Darby's kind of out-wrestling me, being quicker than me, and so I have to think differently. JR at one point on commentary makes a comparison between Allin and Kurt Cobain because, well, they're both from Washington State, and they're both kind of geniuses, both smart and gifted in their own ways. Kind of a stretch. I don't think Darby Allin's on heroin. Anyway, Cody just hurls the hell out of Darby at one point over the match like this, takes this weird bump through the middle turnbuckles and takes a back bump on the floor. Really nasty looking bump, and that's not the worst one we'd see from Darby on this night. Darby's able to get some heat back by slamming Cody's hand and wrist into the ring post, really working on the hand as the match goes on. Cody with a big reverse superplex at one point. That was really cool. Darby does this, and a big, you know, quite possibly more so than the thing we're about to talk about at the end of this match, is where at one point Darby does a trust fall off the top turnbuckle onto the apron. Cody gets out of the way, so Darby just does this huge back bump right on the apron. Good God, that is so scary in so many different ways. So many different ways that particular bump could go wrong. And for someone who's as young as he is, and also who's as small as he is as well, not a whole lot of padding in his back, to take a bump like that is like, oh, so scary, so gnarly. With about a minute to go in this matchup, Cody puts Darby in the body bag that Darby himself brought into the ring, hits a disaster kick, takes him out of the body bag, tries to cover him, we get a kick out. Cody is hitting him with like the weight belt, hits a crossroads at the very last second, he pins him, and just as Aubrey Edwards is about about to hit the 3, the time expires, the bell rings, the match officially ends in a draw. I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars out of 4. Despite the inconclusive ending, sometimes a non-ending like that is the best outcome you could possibly have. You know, you can question the logic of, putting Cody in this match with Darby Allin in the first place. You know, on paper, it is kind of a big David versus Goliath kind of thing. Darby is not in the same league in canon as Cody is, so it makes you wonder why this match was made in the first place. But it makes Darby like $1 million. The fact he was able to hang with Cody on this stage like he did, and I think he really impressed in this match as well. If this is a lot of people's first exposure to Darby Allin, then I think that hopefully he impressed a lot of these people in a major way with some of the stuff he was busting out, especially some of the risks he was taking. For better or for worse, they were very eye-catching and very memorable. Cody would have looked bad had he lost to Darby here, and meanwhile Darby didn't need the win. I think as long as he was given a chance to look good here, which he did, that's all he really needs for this kind of first opening salvo in AEW. And I think that I think a draw is the best possible outcome for this matchup here. Sets you up for a possible rematch down the line. And anyway, Shawn Spears chair shot, bitches. Cody's busted open like nobody's business here. Apparently the bottom lip area of the back of the chair kind of hit Cody on the way down. That's what causes this cut, and so he's bleeding a lot. He needs 12 staples to close it up. It's got this very serious thing where you see like the officials coming to help him. He looks kind of glazed over and everything. This chair shot unprotected to the head in 2019. Do we need that in wrestling today? I will admit, there is, a lizard brain thing where you can really enjoy a good, satisfying chair shot to the head. Just like the movement and the connection and the thwack it makes, there's something very primal about that moment there that I think a lot of people enjoy deep down, and that's why people fight so hard to see chair shots in wrestling even today. And also, we all know there's concussion risks out there. People know more about the risk of chair shots to the head, and so I don't think Cody and Shawn Spears were dumb. They went in there knowing the risks, and they took them, which on one level you have to admire them for doing that. At the same time, though, it is 2019, and we know all about concussions and CTE now. Even JR brings it up in commentary. Well, they gotta do some CTE testing or something. I think WWE has conditioned us as wrestling fans that we don't need headshots anymore with chairs to really get points across. Like I said, I think it can be satisfying on one level, on that primal lizard brain level, to see a chair shot to the head, but yeah, it's just so weird now. The optics are especially bad because AEW is owned by people who also own an NFL team, and the NFL is just awash in concussion controversy, and it has been for a very long time. So it seems kind of tone deaf for them to have a spot like this where you see like brain damage, boom, and then you see Cody kind of wandering off like he's concussed as he's making his way to the back. It's one of those things where, like, do you need that in wrestling to tell stories? I think if the participants are down with it, and if it's really important to tell the story, then on one level I am in favor of it. And again, it's personal choice. They knew the risks going into it, and so I can't stop them from making that decision. No one can. But it's just an issue of, like, do you need that anymore? And is it worth the potential brain trauma? So really, I'm kind of split 50-50 on it. Why don't you answer in the poll right up here what you think about the chair shot? Did you think it was necessary? Let me know in the poll above. The announce team kills a lot of time after this incident to see Cody getting helped up and helped to the back. And he's, like I said, he's clearly out of it. He's shell-shocked. He looks glazed over. Yet he has no problem boosting the rest of the show after he's stapled up, which social media clearly shows you. What's real wrestling anymore? Who cares even? The official main event for this show on this night is a 6-man tag team match as the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega take on the Lucha Brothers and the Laredo Kid. And one of the notable things here is that the Elite are dressed up as Ryu, Ken, and Akuma from the Street Fighter series. And one of the things is, as the Bucks make their entrance, you see this like fan storm the stage with the Batista gun thing, and then the lights go out. You see this like full screen animation for something that Kenny does. You hear a sound effect. The announcers go, whoa, whoa, whoa. You have no idea what's happening. And the lights come up, and they've taken the fan down. Okay, and they're posing. Which, again, that's a production thing, whereas if you're gonna try and show something like that, you hear the announcers react to something, but the viewing audience, it's no clue what's going on. That's kind of a botch for me. Then also, speaking of botches, one of the stories was Kenny couldn't get his Akuma gear to arrive in time. His seamstress, or the gear maker, didn't get it to him in time. What a shock. Even on that level of wrestling, gear makers for wrestling still have a hard time making good on their promises when shit's gonna get done. At the top of the match, Kenny gets Justin Roberts, the ring announcer, to say, round one, fight, which is pretty hilarious. The luchadors are flippy, but the elite are equally so. I'm not gonna try and bog you down with a blow-by-blow account of what you see in this match. There's lots of Canadian destroyers, there's lots of super kicks, lots of flip-de-doos. There is a Hadouken, a three-person Hadouken by the elite, which causes all the luchadors to all bump. The match ends in a giant, wobbly, scary spot with the Bucks and the Bros off the top rope to the outside. Omega wins the one-winged angel on Laredo Kid. Omega is seen popping off at Penta after the match, which implies that perhaps a rematch from their match last year at All In is due in the future. I give this match 3.5 stars out of 4. The theme since All In has seemed to be that the Young Bucks / Kenny Omega get the spectacle, the action-packed match of the night, whereas Cody seems to be designated as the emotional match of the night. You know, even though not as much on the level of like Dustin Rhodes or Nick Aldis, Cody's match with Darby Allin probably was still the most emotional match of the night in terms of storytelling and body language and that kind of thing. Whereas, yes, the 6-man tag team match was the popcorn match. It was the spectacle that everyone knew it would be. The match does suffer from legal man syndrome a lot of the time, which does rub me the wrong way in general. And also, my big issue with these matches usually is just like the issue of not really selling that much. Boom, 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 gotta go to the next spot. Very over choreographed, very dance routine in that nature, but I mean, you can't deny this crowd was definitely into everything they were doing in this matchup. The energy that was killed by the Librarians finally picks up around this time, so at least there's that. The final match of the night is billed as an unsanctioned match as Jon Moxley makes his AEW in-ring debut against Joey Janela. How fucked is it that this match is officially not in the record books in AEW, but Michael Nakazawa and Alex Jebailey is? Also, worth pointing out that even though this match is technically unsanctioned by AEW, Moxley still gets pyro, their lower third name graphics, all the AEW branding on them, and the referee's not even wearing a black shirt for fuck's sake. They go to the outside fairly quickly. At one point, Janela hits Moxley with a fan's prosthetic leg, which is pretty old school. Janela flips off the top rope onto an open chair, which doesn't look pretty. Moxley pulls out a steel chair wrapped in barbed wire. They each take turns taking bumps or getting hit by that chair. There be table spots. There's a leg sweep off the apron. Both go through the table. Moxley brings out a board covered in barbed wire. Janela hits him with a Death Valley driver into it, which doesn't look very good. A giant elbow drop. Probably the biggest spot of the night here, this match I should say, is Janela doing a giant elbow drop off the top of the ladder onto Moxley on the outside through 2 tables. One of them doesn't break, but the optics and the visual of Janela hitting the air like that, still very impressive. He brings out his own barbed wire board, and then Moxley Death Valley drivers him through it. Moxley pulls out a big bag of thumbtacks, takes off Janela's shoes and socks, and ultimately hits him with an atomic drop into the thumbtack. So Janela lands feet first. At least that moment would have been more impactful if Janela didn't already land feet first on some of the tacks just before that. But anyway, there's this moment where Janela, after he takes the bump, he kind of holds his feet up in the air so people can see the tacks in his feet. I'm sure it hurt like hell, but I bet you anything they were envisioning a lot more coverage on the soles of the feet than what they got, because like just the heels. It's like that wasn't full-on coverage there. Anyway, John gets out more thumbtacks. He hits Janela with the paradigm shift, spits out a thumbtack as he makes his way up from there. Also takes a huge bump of his own on the thumbtacks as well, and then he pins him to win the match. I give this match 3 stars out of 4. I have to give him props for some of the big risks these guys took throughout the entire match, especially Janela, who I know that's kind of his penchant, but he definitely looks great in defeat here. And I know that phrase is kind of overused and it seems kind of hollow at times, but that's what they mean when people tell you wins and losses don't count. It's all about how you get the character across and how you impress people when you're doing your shtick. And I think Janela did that in a huge way. I think this was a really big eye-opener to fans who are just familiar with Dean Ambrose and haven't seen what Jon Moxley could do in the deathmatch scene. This is not as extreme as Moxley got in the deathmatch scene before he got signed, but it's kind of a nice ramping up back to that style. I would liken it to perhaps like WWF at their most edgy and hardcore at the year 2000, or every time Mick Foley comes back for a retirement match, they bust out some ridiculous barbed wire spot or something. That's the kind of vibe I got from this. There were no light tubes, there were no, sawzalls or anything like that. It was just, it was tables, it was ladders, chairs, barbed wire, and that was the gist of it. After a while, what they started doing, get kind of redundant, kind of spots for the sake of spots, which I know deathmatch wrestling kind of is. It still makes it hard for me to get into, though. But like I said, it was certainly a spectacle, Certainly a big showing for Moxley in his first match in AEW since leaving WWE. Of course, he's wrestled in New Japan since after that and everything. But yeah, this is a really exciting way to end the show, I guess, with a big blow-off of this big spectacle, this big death match thing. After the match, though, Kenny Omega returns, and they has fight. He fights Moxley up and down the ramp near the band setup for Blink 182, allegedly. And what a just classy professional setup that was, too. Omega lays him out with the trash can. That's how the show ends. My final grade for AEW's FYTER FEST is a B+, and I will say, if I were taking the pre-show into account my score, which I don't, it'd be more of a C-, because the pre-show was pretty darn wonky. The things you see in the cons column with the asterisks, those are from the pre-show, so they don't factor into the main score of my show, but they are still worth addressing. The Librarian stuff and the Jebailey Nakazawa match, that whole thing was just awful. The Librarians I'm on the fence about. Here's the thing though, when every match is designed to steal the show, does any one match actually steal the show, or is it just constant like, oh my god, you're making the audience just like go crazy over and over again, almost leading to fatigue? I think the show was a good length. 2.5 hours, perfect length for a pay-per-view, especially of this kind where the stakes aren't as high as, say, Double or Nothing or All Out. But I think, yeah, every match was, very good wrestling action. I'm not gonna doubt or deny the wrestling stuff, but I think that right now, the people in charge of AEW are still trying to find their voice creatively. Do they want to be a super serious, sports-centric, no goofy stuff, no soap opera stuff, or do they want to do the goofy shit like Jebailey and Nakazawa and the Librarian stuff? It feels like they're kind of like just segmenting off and segregating the goofy stuff to the pre-show. Like, this is kind of technically non-canon, don't worry about that. These are the big matches you want to see with the Elite. And so I wonder if, when they're going to find their footing and figure out that balance they want to make. I'm not saying the goofy stuff's turning fans away. I have no way to quantify that or to justify that claim, but I think the people who want an alternative to WWE aren't really seeing that with the goofier things. There are still a lot of issues with production that need to be addressed, and some of the booking decisions I thought were very kind of incestuous or very kind of like inside joke, but there were other things that I did enjoy they did. I will give them credit for is their ability to build. Like, they built a lot of new characters on this show, they built a lot of existing storylines, starting out new ones, building to matches not just for the next show at Fight for the Fallen, but also to All Out. And in some cases, some wrestlers were getting build and hype for those two shows in a row, which you don't see very often, especially against other wrestlers, other competitors from show to show. So yeah, damn good wrestling, top to bottom. The book needs some work. I think these guys need to find their voice and their footing creatively, and also don't invoke other failed things when you're trying to bring up your new thing. Like, don't bring up FYTER FEST. That also, might I just say, I feel that the window of opportunities passed to make good FYTER FEST jokes, because those documentaries came out months ago, and no one's talking about them anymore. So let's bring up FYTER FEST and FYTER FEST. It just seems kind of late for that. But let me know what you thought about FYTER FEST in the comments section below, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks when I review Fight for the Fallen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.